You know, there's actually, I don't know how you feel about them. Do you play Pokemon games?
No, I tried.
Um, there is, when you're, because you're talking about artificial challenges, have you ever heard of the term Nuzlocke?
No.
Okay, so in for Pokemon games, there's a community-made, fan-made challenge called the Nuzlocke Run, where instead of, so most Pokemon games you can catch whatever you want, go wherever you want, level as much as you want, do whatever you want. You usually will just end up steamrolling the game because they're supposed to have a curve where kids can enjoy them, adults can enjoy them,
Hmm.
be super simple. But a lot of fans are like, okay, we want an actual hard Pokemon game. Well, how do we make Pokemon hard? So this is what people came up with. No items in battle. Okay, that's fine. So you can't use a potion on a Pokemon. If you want recovery, you're gonna have to teach the Pokemon a recovery move, eating up one of your move slots. Um, then you can only catch one Pokemon per route in the game. So route one, you can only catch one Pokemon. Once you've caught that one, that's the one that's going to be on your team. Doesn't matter if there's a better one out there. That's the one you're using. So you can't pick and choose all of the best statted ones. If you get a bunch of stinkers, you're using a bunch of stinkers. Good luck. And then you can't overlevel the gym. So every gym leader has a highest level, their quote unquote ace Pokemon. You can't overlevel that. Your whole team has to be at or below that level
Hmm.
before you take on the gym. If you have something over that level, you can't use it in the fight. So all of a sudden, okay, so that's getting more and more. And then the real parts of the Nuzlocke. If a Pokemon faints, cannot use it for the rest of the run. It is considered dead, quote unquote. You have to put it in the box or release it. Usually, people put it in the box because they want to keep a memory of that Pokemon. And so all of a sudden, you got a star player who's just sweeping through everything, and they get hit by an unlucky critical strike. They're dead. Congratulations. You
Wow.
now have to find a new star for your team, and every feint hurts when it happens. You're like, oh no, and because it didn't feel like it hurt enough, another optional rule that everybody kind of generally accepts is you have to nickname every one of your Pokemon so you feel more closely attached to them.
Huh.
So when they die, it hurts more. Yeah. And then lastly, the real kicker of the whole thing is if you ever wipe on a fight, you ever white out, which is what it's called in the games, where all your Pokemon get fainted and you lose the battle, you instantly lose the entire game. You have to reset from the beginning.
Wow.
It makes Pokemon games so much more fun and so much more intense, while also, if I'm being honest, it gets closer to the spirit of what Pokemon talks about, is supposed to be about in the anime. Instead of just, the games where they can be pretty mindless of just pick the super effective move and win, it really gets to the make a strategy, connect with your team, train together, win together, like really bond with your Pokemon because you don't know when your last battle with them is. And it leads to these really really epic moments where like there's some Nuzlockers online where they're doing a run, their entire team's been killed, their Pokemon lives on like 2 health and then kills the other Pokemon or faints the other Pokemon to win the entire run. And it's like you literally won that entire run with 2 HP. If that had happened, we'll snap back to the beginning. So yeah, it kind of it makes all of Pokemon's the randomness elements shine most because you want to play around the randomness. You have to really be like actively thinking of, okay, am I in a range for a crit? The famous term in that community, play around the critical strike. And yeah, it's just that is I think my favorite example of where a challenge run connects you with the themes the game is trying to communicate with you. You're no longer mindlessly just kind of traipsing through the game and yada yada, not paying attention, not really caring about what happens. Oh, my Pokemon fainted. I'll revive him. It's now every fight can be your last, and I think that makes for such a cool experience and a much better experience going through these Pokemon games that are usually really really easy. It connects you on a whole nother level to the game, and it kind of is more or less like made me fall back in love with playing Pokemon games, because they usually would just kind of, yeah, they're fun, they're all right. Now I'm like, oh my goodness, I'm doing a Nuzlocke run, with Generation Lock from Generation 1 all the way up to 9, which is coming out next week, and it's a blast. So
That's awesome that that's actually a thing where people actually apply organic challenges to themselves. How do you spell that? What's it called?
the Nuzlocke, Nuzlocke. It's a weird name. If I remember correctly, the story behind it was the original, like, the origin of the Nuzlocke challenge was this guy who made a comic series about, the guy who created the idea of the challenge made a comic series of his playthrough in a Nuzlocke, where his team's like star member, or his ace, was a Nuzleaf, which is a Pokemon. And that Nuzleaf's nickname was John Locke, which from the Lost series, and so Nuzlocke, that's how the name happened.
Wow. So other than collecting different Pokemon, I thought it was pretty straightforward. I didn't know you could actually expand upon difficulty that way.
Oh yeah, it really really does take, and especially like in recent years when they've made the games naturally harder, like enemy teams are more strategically built. The most recent entries before Scarlet and Violet, which was a remake of the Generation 4 games, Brilliant Diamond and Shining Pearl, they pulled out all the stops. And they made the Elite Four teams like as competitively viable as they could. They gave them smart held items, smart EVs, smart IVs, which I know it's a lot of Pokemon mumbo jumbo, good coverage moves. These are all kind of slang terms, but all that is to say these teams are hard to beat on a normal playthrough. So playing with Nuzlocke rules, these things will eat your team for breakfast, and it's right at the end of the game, so you'll probably be playing that game for a long time.
Man, okay. Maybe I should try that. Maybe I'll end up falling in love with Pokemon playing that way.
I honestly think that it's a great way to find enjoyment in the games as an adult, because yeah, they can be pretty, I will admit, they can be a little boring, or at least very good don't pay attention to games, games you can watch Netflix while you play. But when you're Nuzlocking, you got to be people running calcs, making sure your damage is going to be enough to one shot, because if this thing gets one move off, your Pokemon's done. Like, you have to be very very engaged with it, and I think that is so cool.
Which Pokemon do you recommend the most?
Ooh, that is a good question. I can send a link. You can probably put this link in the bottom of the video. There's a site called Nuzlocke University that explains rules and stuff, and it also has a bunch of articles about like which are some of the best Pokemon games. I actually wrote a script for a channel kind of related to this, and so if you ever, I can tell you about it when that comes out. I don't know when they're going to release it though, but I did write a script about the worst to best Pokemon games to Nuzlocke, and a lot of people recommend Fire Red and Leaf Green is one of them. They were Generation 3 games. They take place in the Kanto region, which is the Generation 1 region. They're simple enough to understand, but there was kind of when Pokemon was starting to get more complex. If you want a really hard game to start with, you can go with the Diamond, Pearl, Platinum, or of course, if you have a Switch, you can get Brilliant Diamond, Shining Pearl. Those are very difficult to Nuzlocke. Really, it kind of comes down to a lot of preference. There's a lot of good places to start. Personally, I only like playing the games Gen 4 and beyond, because that was when a lot of the modern quality of life features kind of came into play for Pokemon, and we got to see things like the physical special split, where there were physical moves and special moves instead of each type was assigned if it was physical or special. So all fighting moves are physical, all water moves are special. They instead were like, okay, that's dumb, because if somebody were to punch you to use something like a water punch, then that's pretty physical, a punch. And if some Pokemon used a fighting move like Aura Sphere, it's shooting like an energy beam, like a Kamehameha. That sounds pretty special to me. And
Wow.
so it kind of broke the things down and really added the layer of depth and complexity to Pokemon to just make them better and more interesting. And yeah, I really highly recommend looking into Nuzlocking and Pokemon and just all that in general. Sometime I am absolutely making a video about why I still play Pokemon games.